Hey everyone, Dave here. Today we are going to calculate a 10-year property pro forma on an investment property. So let's talk about what we're going to cover. What is a 10-year property pro forma? Be the first topic. Talk about what it measures and what it doesn't. How do we calculate the pro forma? What are the variables that go into it? Look at a spreadsheet that is an actual live example of a candidate property, and then interpret the results. So what is it? It is a projection of a property's income and expenses over a 10-year period. It's looking at the impact of a property on your current cash flow. You see down here, it's not looking at the impact on your net worth. We're not looking at future cash flow considerations other than just the 10-year period we're in, but we're not factoring in price appreciation. We're not factoring in accumulating equity by paying down the mortgage. And we're not factoring in something called depreciation recapture. If you're depreciating a property and taking that tax benefit, the IRS wants some of that back if you eventually sell it. That's going to impact future cash flows. And we exclude that to simplify the analysis here. There's no magic to the 10-year time frame. You may even run this longer if this is a really long-term hold, a permanent part of your portfolio, or you may shorten it up if this is a thing you're thinking about selling. If it's maybe an uncertain investment, short-term vacation rentals in major metro areas are being outlawed all the time. So we may just want to look at that on a 2 or even 3-year basis. Why do we calculate pro formas? So we look at how individual properties are cash flowing. We can compare properties to one another and identify potential candidates to be cash out refied, 1031 exchanged into something that is performing better, or just outright selling a property to satisfy other demands for investment cash or pay down debt elsewhere. So the variables: income, rent collected each year, less a vacancy factor. Most people put in 5%. You may make this higher if it's your first property or uncertain how this will perform. Expenses, we're going to look at your monthly mortgage payment, but multiply that by 12 to get the annual value. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, we're going to make sure we're capturing all expenses here. Your property manager, any house meters for utilities, snow removal, lawn cutting, tax prep, all that good stuff. A tax return or your bookkeeping software are good places to cross-check these things. Other variables, again, we want to capture the tax benefit of this thing. So we'll need the annual depreciation. If you have a single property and you're an LLC, you're not a real estate professional, this is passive income. It's going to be on Schedule E, line 18. And then your marginal tax rate. What is your current tax bracket? Other required information: inflation. We want to see how fast rents, taxes, insurance are increasing over time. A typical value is 3%. That's what we have in here. And then we don't need this for the pro forma, but to do some of the interpretation of results, we'll look at current value of the building and then the remaining balance that you have on the property. So when I set up a spreadsheet, I kind of put some global assumptions at the top, and then we've got our property specific information here. I like to highlight in yellow the cells that I need to change for any given property. And again, anything that's a global assumption is in white, or anything that is calculated tends to be in white. Unless I think it's really important, then maybe I'll make it a different color. So for this property in particular, it is at 15 Yemen Road. Our global assumptions: our tax bracket is 24%. Inflation we'll put in at 3%. And our vacancy rate is at 5%. General data, this is, again, not even used in the calculation, but I like to have it there. Our purchase price was $381,000 approximately. The monthly rent is $2,884. The monthly mortgage is $1,187. So let's look at the expenses or costs associated with the property. Mortgage, we're annualizing that, $2,884 times 12, $14,239. And then the taxes, insurance, and maintenance are all put in here. The benefits, I call it benefits and not income, because rent is certainly income, and so we have that less vacancy. I think I may have given you the wrong number for mortgage. It's actually $1,187 times 12 is the $14,239. Rent, which is the $2,884, we're multiplying that times 12 to get to this figure. But again, we're subtracting out that 5% in the spreadsheet. So we want to make sure that you have this. Basically, your formula is going to be 2884 times 12 times 0.95, or 1 minus this cell's value, to make sure that you subtract out vacancy. Depreciation, again, we're grabbing that from your tax return, and then we're calculating what the annual tax benefit will be. We want to know the current valuation of the building, the remaining balance on the mortgage. That allows us to calculate the equity that we have in the building. And I'm going to come back to this equity over 10-year cash flow ratio in a minute. So let's look at the actual spreadsheet chugging away for 10 years. There's 1 through 10. I like to put the calendar year 2 in case we have any milestones in here personally, and we can kind of see how things are going. Rent, again, make sure this is less vacancy. And this increases with inflation. The tax benefit is that depreciation factor times your marginal tax benefit or tax bracket, current tax bracket. It is fixed over time over the life of the property. You can do this for 27 and a half years. The total benefits then are rent plus the tax benefit. Then we have our costs, which are the mortgage, annual, taxes, insurance, maintenance. The mortgage, great thing about this is it's staying fixed, assuming you don't refi. Taxes, insurance, and maintenance we show increasing with inflation. So we've got our total costs. So our cash flow, and again, let's put cash, probably should be in quotes here because we're including the tax benefit. But the cash flow, as I see it, in terms of what's happening overall for you, is your total benefits minus your total costs is this annual cash flow. And you can see this property is cash flowing nicely, almost $11,000 a year. That's starting to approach $1,000 a month. And if we sum this up over a 10-year period, we get $143,185, increasing each year. This is becoming a really fantastic investment. And so a few things. One, Captain Obvious, this is cash flowing really nicely. Two, we'd look at this certainly in the context of other properties in our portfolio, but this one seems pretty good in terms of how much it's cash flowing and maybe hard to beat elsewhere. If we flip back here also, a metric I really love looking at is the amount of equity in the building over the 10-year cash flow. If we're looking at this as a portfolio. So we've got $268,000 in equity, and this is returning over a 10-year period, $143,185. And so that equity to cash flow ratio is about 2. Now, we're not assuming selling costs or other things. This isn't actually what you're going to realize if you sell the building. You'll also have taxes coming out of there unless you 1031 exchange it into something else. So again, this is a very crude measure of we're basically looking how much can we get now versus what's this thing going to return over time. We could basically get double the money now, again, subtracting out selling costs and taxes versus the 10 years of cash flow. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at this as a potential candidate to do something with in the portfolio versus hold. So that is it for today. You can send questions to info@rowanfinancial.com or visit rowanfinancial.com to set up a free consultation. If you're seeing this on social media, like and follow if you'd like to see more from me. Take care.